Hello everybody, Skratch coming up with another Raid Shadow Legends video. We got released the update 2.2 highlights, guys, so we got all the patch notes for all the champions getting buffed, getting nerfed. We got a lot of information about the Forge, about the advanced quests, and all the rest of the stuff that they will be coming with the 2.2 patch next week probably. They did specify that they will be releasing the press release, which is the update 2.2 highlights, the week before the patch drops. So that means we will be getting the patch next week at some point, probably around the middle of the week, I would say. So what we have right here: greeting raiders, the time has come to reveal what update 2.2 has in store for you, and this is going to be some big news. Definitely some big news for whoever already checked them. Some of the champions got insane nerfs, not crazy buffs on some of them. Is a bit of an average with the buffs on some of the champions. But we're gonna walk through every single champion that we have on the list here, guys, and see what exactly are they doing to some of the champions to balance them better. Now, first off, the Forge goes live at last. This is a feature we announced a while back, and today you can learn all about its first iteration that's going to hit Teleria very soon. Next up, we have a new set of quests for our summoners to sink their teeth into. The new rewards for those are delicious, they say the least. Finally, we are going through with a massive champion balance patch with more than 30 champions tweaked to ensure a balanced and competitive environment for PvP and tournaments. Now, I would not honestly call it a massive champion balance. It doesn't feel like. So it says check out the update highlights below, so we're gonna check that in a minute as well. But first, let's find out what we know about the Forge and the rest of the stuff. So we have Artifact Forge. Personally, I'm pretty hyped about this. I wanted to be able to make artifacts myself, try to get the specific rolls on artifacts and other things like this, so we're gonna be able to do that. I think is great. Remember that old campfire in the middle of the Bastion, yeah, it gained a level and it grew into a proper arcane forge, where summoners from all across Teleria can craft powerful artifacts to equip their champions with. Arcane Forge, that's from Destiny, guys. If you guys play Destiny, you know how the Arcane Forge was in Destiny. It was a pretty solid content to grind. Now, this feature will be unlocked for players of level 30 and above, which is when the Artifact Forge building becomes accessible. Tapping on it will bring up the Forge UI, where you can craft artifacts from specific sets by spending resources called materials and silver. There will be 4 types of materials. Pretty decent, 4 only. It makes it more easier to access them, to gain them. Magisteel, which you earn by winning classic arena battles, so it's good that we can actually fight arena and gain something else on top of it. Soulstone, rare epic legendary, which you earn by winning faction wars battles, so I guess is a randomness in what you gain there. I hope that the higher the stage of the faction war you beat, the higher the chances of dropping them. I hope you're not gonna get from stage 20-21 rares, because that's gonna be a pain. Bloodstone, rare epic legendary, is also obtained from faction wars, so we have 2 different currencies dropping from faction wars. So that kind of puts it in a bit of an unbalanced situation where you'll be able to gain Bloodstone non-stop, but none of the Soulstone. So hopefully they're well balanced and in a decent manner, so we're actually getting able to lose them. Core Hammer, legendary only. This is a special material that can be obtained by scoring a certain number of points in tournaments. So, is this pay to win here? It might be. It depends where exactly in the bracket of the tournament they're gonna place these core hammers to be accessible. Tournaments and events will award various material as well. Keep in mind that the maximum numbers of Magisteel, Soulstone, Bloodstone and core hammers that any players can keep is 10,000 each. Anything that goes over that limit will be lost. So that means we can only hold 10,000 each. By the way we see on the requirements here, seems like this is for a 5 to 6 star piece of gear, and it requires 5 of these, 10 of that and 5 of that. So holding 10k of each of them I think will be plenty overall. Now, once you have enough strong material stored, you can begin crafting artifacts. To do so, you just need to select the desired artifact set and the rank which you want to go for. Once that is done, you spend a set amount of silver to begin crafting, and a random artifact from the set will be forged within the chosen rank limits. It's that simple. Awesome, that sounds good. Now, but what if you want to get a specific artifact like a shield or boots? Don't worry, we've got you covered. There is another resource you can use in crafting called charms. Adding charms to your recipe increases the chances of getting artifacts with better rank, better rarity, specific artifacts types, specific substats. You can apply up to 4 charms at once, but only one of each type. So that means that the increased chance will only be a 2% chance for substats and a... Okay, wait. 50% chance. Okay, because before when we saw in the trailer was only showing a 2%. Okay, so we have a 50% chance to get a specific substat. We can only put it once. That's pretty good, and 50% chance sounds pretty decent. They will be available as rewards for tournaments, events, and in some cases, advanced quests. Now, I hope they will not be tied only to tournaments and events, because that will make it a bit unfair. Hopefully, we will be having them everywhere else. Finally, let's take a quick look at the artifact sets available in the Forge. We already know that. We have Resilience, HP, and Defense. We have Perception, Accuracy, plus Speed, 5%. That's going to be the best set out of all of them. You'll be able to use it everywhere. Trust me on that. It's definitely going to be the best. Now, I'm not going to walk you through the rest of shenanigans because we already know the rest. We have the advanced quests. Now, this is one of those features taking what you already know and making it better. Like the daily quests everyone in Raid is using by now. Advanced quests offer a list of challenges to complete. Some of them are static and do not refresh until they are done. Others will need to be completed within 24 hours. These challenges will focus on things not yet covered by daily or weekly quests, tag team arena, faction wars, and so on. When the Doom Tower goes live, there will be specific advanced quests for it as well. That's great. So every 25 days we will be able to gain a legendary book, epic book, and a 5-star chicken. I think that's great. We didn't have a normal free way of earning this before in game, but now we do it constantly, so that's absolutely great. Super positive about this for free-to-play players, for everyone, honestly, is great. Now, let's move over to the champion balance. I'm not gonna read you all this from here, because it's no point. So we're gonna jump straight to the actual buffs and nerfs. And then I'm gonna tell you what's my favorite buff, which is the worst nerf out of all the champions. A lot of you guys complain about specific champions, they got nerfed, now you're all crying because you have them and they're not as good as they used to be. They're pretty useless, some of them. They killed the white whale comp. Duchess cannot do it anymore, so that's a big rip for all of you guys complaining about Duchess. Hope you enjoyed it, or whatever, because most of you people ask for it, that's what you get back. Okay, so now let's have a quick look at Rotos, the Lost Groom. Everybody wanted him nerfed. I totally agree, he needed to be a bit nerfed, but I think they went a bit too far with Rotos. Again, you guys complained about him, that's what we get in return. So we have a Terror Scourge. Attacks one enemy, has a 75% chance of placing a 60% decreased defense debuff for 2 turns. Also has a 25% chance of granting an extra turn. So the chance of granting an extra turn got reduced a bit here. I think was 30% or 35, I can't remember, but it got a bit reduced. Then we have Vitality Plunder. Damage slightly decreased. Fated Destruction. Attacks one enemy, will ignore 60% of the target's defense, so we lost 15% there. Will also ignore unkillable and block damage buffs. Enemies killed by this skill cannot be revived if this champion has max HP from the Vitality Plunder skill. So what that means exactly? That means that he will have to use his A2 until he gets the maximum stack of HP of 60k that's capped on that skill. So that means that probably he will never get to block a revive ever again. Grants an extra turn if this skill kills an enemy. So you will be getting the extra turn if you kill an enemy, but you will not be blocking the revive anymore. Honestly, I think it's gonna be super hard in the current meta with nukers to be able for you to go with Rotos and use his A2 2, 3, 4 times in a battle to actually get the max stack of HP in order to be able to block a revive. Bug fix. Fix an issue causing incorrect damage calculation for his skill. Effectively, it will result in a slight damage reduction. Whatever, I'm not sure for which skill exactly, if it's Fated Destruction or something else. Then we have Sifi, the Lost Bride. Whirlwind Romance fills the turn meter of all allies by 10% instead of 15, I think, and places a block debuff buff and a 60% increased defense buff and a 30% increased speed buff on all allies for 2 turns. Cooldown on 6 turns, so that's not booked. Before I think it was on 5-turn cooldown, fully booked, it got up to down to 4. Now I think it's on 5-turn cooldown. No, it was on 3-turn cooldown, now it's on 4 actually, my bad. Then we have Eternal Passive, heals each ally by 10% of their max HP instead of 15, what it was before I think. Has a 40% chance of removing Freeze and Fear debuff from each ally at the start of their turn. Okay, so it's just Freeze and Fear, nothing else from there. Same with Rotos, removes everything from him. Then we have Arbiter, that's just a fix, is not a nerf here, so was just not working as intended for a long time. We have Duchess again. She has probably the most impactful nerf and the smallest amount of explanation here. Shroud of Souls, cooldown 6 turns. So instead of 4 turn cooldown what we had on her A2 before, we have it on 5 turn cooldown. That's what it kills the clan boss compositions now with Duchesses that you used to run with Mashaled, the White Whale or whatever you guys are calling it. So that's unfortunately gone. Then we have Madame series, removes a buff from enemies, places a 50% decrease attack debuff and a 60% decrease defense debuff on all enemies for 2 turns, so you don't really see a massive nerf here. Coronar got super average. If you're not using him with Minaya, he's just another average champion in your team. Decreases each target's turn meter by 5%, attacks all enemies 2 times, so he actually got a reduction in the turn meter by 5%, that's all that it changed on him. Then moving over to the massive rebalance of champions, we have Blind Seer. So what we have here is she's gonna place block debuffs instead of the shield first, and like this your team is not gonna freeze anymore, nothing else changed there. And then we got decreased the cooldown by 1 turn, revives all dead allies. So instead of 6 turn cooldown, now is on 5 turn cooldown fully booked. And her aura increases ally defense in all battles by 34%. I don't think that changed. Now, one thing I don't understand that it happened right here is Warlord. He was like this for 2 years. I think he was in a very good position. If was something to buff on him, I would have probably buffed his A1 by 5-10% extra chance of increasing the debuffs on the enemies. But he got a buff, a decreased cooldown on his A3. So that's one of the most OP skills in the game. It cannot be cleansed. It cannot be blocked by block debuffs. Either you're faster than the team to win it, either you have higher resistance than Warlord. So now if you have a Warlord with Siphi and Arbiter in your team, you're gonna lock down the enemy team. They will have no chance to recover whatsoever. He got a 1 turn decreased cooldown on his A3, making it, instead of 5 turn cooldown fully booked, down to 4 turn cooldown fully booked, making it almost impossible for any team that's slower, with lower resistance and they have accuracy, to recover in the fight and to win. So I think that's a bit too overpowered for Arena now. I don't think they needed to touch that. Then we have Traxxa. Attacks one enemy, has a 75% chance of placing a 25% weakened debuff for 2 turns, has a 75% chance of removing 2 random buffs from the target. I think that used to be on 50% each one of them. We have Gurgo, removes 2 random buffs from all enemies, has a 80% chance of placing a freeze debuff on all enemies for 1 turn, grants an extra turn. We decrease the cooldown by 1. We increase the base speed on him to 98, nothing too crazy on him. Alika attacks all enemies, has a 75% chance of increasing the cooldown of all enemy skills by 1 turn. We decrease the cooldown by 1, I think. Elder Skark, Hand the Mark, attacks one enemy 3 times, places an extra hit for each buff or debuff on the target, can place up to 3 extra hits, places a HP burn debuff for 2 turns and a True Fear debuff for 1 turn. If this attack places all 3 extra hits, steal all the buffs from the target after the attack. So this is not his A1, unfortunately. If it would have been his A1, would have been pretty good for the Fire Knight. Then we have Elder's Clarion, places a 60% increased defense buff on this champion for 3 turns. Blah blah blah, they haven't changed nothing there. What they did is also places a provoke debuff on legendary champions for 1 turn. Now the question is the next one. All these debuffs in front of it specify this debuff cannot be resisted. What about the provoke on legendary champions? Can that be resisted? You need accuracy for it? It's not very clear. Kingslayer receives 15% less damage from legendary champions. Inflicts damage equal to this champion's attack when attacked by legendary champions. So they're not specifying, but by the way the skill is described, I would understand that this skill cannot be critical. So what it means is that I have 5k attack on my Elder Skark, for example, you attack me with your Arbiter, and I will be dealing 5k damage on your Arbiter. So that means that if she's on 50k HP, she will be losing 5k HP probably. That's what I think, I'm not 100% sure. Now my favorite buff out of all of it, I have 3 Candraphones in my vault. They're guarding it very good, they're doing a solid job. They've done this for almost 1 year now. So we have like this. He has a pretty good buff, I actually like it. I think he's gonna be a solid champion. From the Shadows passive effect, damage increases by 40% while attacking under a Veil or Perfect Veil buff. Receives 40% less damage while under a Veil or a Perfect Veil buff. Also boosts this champion's turn meter by 15% each time this champion receives damage under a Veil or Perfect Veil buff. Does not work if this champion is the only alive ally on the team. Active effect places a Perfect Veil buff on this champion for 1 turn each time an enemy's turn meter is filled. This buff cannot be removed, so that means he doesn't need Duchess with him anymore. That's amazing. Then we have Punish Hubris. That's his A1. It used to be one of the worst A1 in the game because the enemy team needed to have attack up or attack down or whatever they needed to have. No chance for you to retaliate. By the time they had that attack up, you were probably dead. Attacks one enemy, places an extra hit if the target is under any buff. I like this, that's a good buff. On the hand, places a Perfect Veil buff, a 50% increased attack, a 30% increased speed buff, and a 30% increased crit damage buff on this champion for 2 turns. So that's why he got new. Increased speed, increased crit damage, but no extra turn, so that doesn't make him too OP. Tormin, he kind of got a buff. Siphi kind of got a buff against him in a way. So he used to have a 15% chance of placing freeze on the flat what he had on the skill. Now he has a 20% chance instead of that. The only thing is that once the enemy team, they used to buff and buff and buff, a million buffs left and right, he used to have a chance to apply freeze every single time with every single buff the enemy team gave. But now that got reduced up to twice per enemy turn. So that means once for buffs, once for turn meter. So if my Siphi puts 3 buffs, Tormin only has 1 chance to freeze from the buffs. Then he has a second chance to freeze from the turn meter. So he only has 2 chances to freeze the enemy team instead of having 4 what he had before. But he has a 5% extra chance to freeze. So it's kind of a buff, at the same time kind of a buff for Siphi against him. But yeah, the rest, nothing changed there. Then we have Biceps. Attacks one enemy, has a 50% chance of placing a block cooldown skills debuff for 1 turn, has a 35% chance of placing a true fear debuff for 1 turn on targets under block cooldown skills. So that means has a 50% chance to place that, and then once he places the block cooldown, he has a 35% chance to place true fear as well. So it's pretty much hand in hand with it, it's not separately, nothing too crazy there. Crumble, attacks all enemies, has a 50% chance of placing a 60% decreased defense debuff for 2 turns. Also has a 50% chance of placing block cooldown skills debuff for 2 turns. So again, that's AoE. I think before it used to be attacks 4 times at random or something like that. Now moving more over to epics. Honestly, it does not feel like they got a major buff or anything at all. Nothing feels game changing towards the epic side of the champions. We have Azure, attacks one enemy 2 times, each hit has a 30% chance of placing a stun debuff for 1 turn. This chance increases to 100% if the target has an increased speed buff. So that can go good against Siphis, against Lissandras, against champions that increase speed. But then you need a lot of accuracy, it's just not crazy. Attacks one enemy, places an extra hit if the target has a stun debuff. The extra hit is always critical, steals 50% of the target's turn meter if they are not under a stun debuff. Again, not great together. Bushi, Deadly Edge, attacks one enemy. This attack is always critical, places a 30% increased crit rate buff and a 15% increased speed buff on this champion for 3 turns. They kind of killed him in my Bushi comp, in the unkillable comp with my Warcasters. That's not gonna work anymore with Bushi because he's gonna get increased speed, so that's gonna throw him out of sync. Then we have a Hexia, attacks one enemy, has a 40% chance of placing a 60% decreased defense debuff for 2 turns. This chance increases by 20 for each debuff placed on this champion. So yeah, pair her together with Gurptuk and you're gonna be having a 100% chance to land increased defense on 1 enemy. Soul Rip attacks one enemy, grants an extra turn and places a 50% increased attack buff on this champion for 2 turns. If this attack kills an enemy, damage increases by 7.5% for each debuff on this champion. Stacks up to 30%. Spirit Haste attacks one enemy, heals this champion by 15% of the damage inflicted. The heal increases by 10% for each debuff on this champion, places a 30% increased speed buff on this champion for 2 turns. Pitiless One. Split Arrow attacks one enemy 2 times, each critical hit fills this champion turn meter by 5%. Damage slightly increased. Projectile Burst. Damage slightly increased, whatever that means. 1%, 2%, 5%, 10%, I have no idea, we're gonna find out. Definitely nothing noticeable on Pitiless One. Bonekeeper attacks one enemy, this attack deals 50% extra crit damage instead of 35 what it used to be. Killing Haze attacks one enemy, places an extra hit if this attack is critical, and she got an extra stuff on here. Fills the turn meter of all allies by 15% if this attack kills an enemy. Okay. Bonekeeper, she was a pretty hard hitter though, so she might be able to kill somebody with that skill. Missionary Crashing Halberd scales from champions HP now, so the damage scales from HP. Then I don't get this one here. We were kind of a bit of confused, but yeah, I'll walk you through it. In that tick, attacks one enemy, has a 75% chance of placing a provoke debuff for 1 turn, has a 100% chance of placing a provoke debuff for 1 turn, and in red, which means that it got nerfed, reduced, and a 50% decrease attack debuff for 2 turns. What was it before? 75% decrease attack, 100% decrease attack. The highest decrease attack I've ever seen in the game was 50%. Did he had more than that and I never saw it, or I have no idea what they mean with that, but is in red. Either is a miswording, either he had 75% decrease attack and nobody knew about it. Damage scales from HP again. Humble the Faithless attacks one enemy, decreases the target's turn meter by 50%, has a 75% chance of placing a 100% heal reduction debuff for 2 turns, also has a 75% chance of placing a 30% decreased speed debuff for 2 turns, so that makes him a bit more viable for Fire Knight, but he's single hitter, so it's not gonna be crazily good from there. Jotun, so both of his skills, damage scales from HP now. His A3 attacks one enemy, decreases the target's max HP by 30% of the damage inflicted. Damage increases by 50% if the target is under a HP burn debuff. Again, damage scales from champion's HP. I think that's a good move. They decrease the cooldown by 1. His damage was scaling from attack. His base attack is completely trash, like 900. His base HP is almost 17k. So hopefully he can hit hard. Hopefully he can be useful in a clan boss. He has a pretty good base defense, 1.2k, so hopefully you guys can use this guy in the clan boss from now on. Jotun. Then we have Teshada. Maximum Carnage, attacks 3 times at random. Each hit has a 50% chance of placing a 15% Ascended 25 weakened debuff for 2 turns. The chance of placing the weakened debuff increases to 100% of critical hits. Give her full crit rate, she's gonna apply weaken for you. They decrease the cooldown on Spirit Appeasement to 3 turn. Not booked, whatever is fully booked, I'm not sure. Maeve attacks one enemy, has a 60% chance of placing a sleep debuff for 1 turn. I'm not sure what she had before that 60, that's the only change. We have Slabber Knocker, attacks one enemy, places a stun debuff for 1 turn, places a stun debuff for 2 turns if the target is under a sleep debuff, so they kind of go hand in hand here. Suwei Firstborn, Render Helpless, attacks one enemy, has a 50% chance of placing a 60% decreased defense debuff for 2 turns, so she has a higher chance of placing a 60% decreased defense now. Places a 50% increased attack buff and a 30% increased damage buff on this champion for 2 turns if this attack kills an enemy. Okay, so I'm gonna get increased attack and increased crit damage only if I kill an enemy before. Not great. Then we have at a Rampage. This hit deals 80% of the damage inflicted from the first hit. This attack will always be a normal hit. Attacks one enemy, attacks all enemies with a second hit. If this attack is critical. Okay, I still don't think she's great. Then the last skill on her, attacks one enemy before attacking, has a 75% chance of placing a 25% weakened debuff for 2 turns. Taurus got a buff, unexpected. Attacks one enemy, has a 75% chance of placing a 25% weakened debuff for 2 turns. Toxic Nova This champion receives damage equal to 99% of the current HP, places an unkillable buff on this champion for 2 turns, has a 80% chance of placing 5% poison debuff on all enemies for 2 turns instead of 3, so that's a buff, he gains 1 more poison. Throw him with Xavier, he's gonna destroy everything. Both of them, they're gonna destroy everything. Snorting Tag attacks one enemy, steals 2 random buffs from the target, ignores the target's defense if they have no active buffs. So he's gonna ignore the defense after he steals the buffs, nothing too crazy there. I'm not sure how hard he hits, I never build him, never use him. Dire Defense has a 30% chance of stealing 1 random buff from the attacker when hit, occurs once per hit, counterattacks the attacker if they have no active buffs. Rowan Slash attacks one enemy, has a 60% chance of placing 100% heal reduction debuff for 2 turns, so you get heal reduction now for the Fire Knight, higher chances to land it. Then Scourge attacks 3 times at random. Each hit has a 40% chance of placing a stun debuff for 1 turn. Blade Search cooldown decreased to 4. Skill upgrades improve chances of placing poisons to 75%. So that means that you have a higher chance of landing poisons with her. It's pretty good. She can be used now probably in clan boss if you don't have a better poisoner than her. Hope attacks one enemy, has a 30% chance of placing a block buffs debuff for 2 turns. I'm not sure what she had before. Definitely not a noticeable buff on her. Increases the duration of buffs on all allies by 1 turn, places a shield buff equal to 25%. So I think that was 20% before. She got a buff of 5%, not crazy. Holy Storm, the cooldown decreased to 4 instead of 5. I really wish they would buff her to actually have a 100% chance to remove all the buffs from the enemy team. It would have been much better. We kind of need more epic champions like this rather than just Madame Series having all of it in it. Canoness, lead the charge, attacks one enemy, has a 50% chance of placing a 50% increased attack buff on a random ally for 2 turns. Blinding Assault, attacks one enemy, has a 80% chance of placing a 50% decreased accuracy debuff and a leech debuff on the target for 2 turns. This attack is always critical. Now this would sound rather good for clan boss if it wouldn't have this decreased accuracy, if it would have some different sort of debuff here. I don't know. We do have a decreased attack from her, we have the leech, that's pretty good. If this would have been weakened or defense down, this would have been a beautiful champion for clan boss. Now Norog, this is his A1, attacks one enemy, has a 40% chance of placing a block cooldown skills debuff for 2 turns. Before he had an 85% chance of placing a decreased accuracy. Thick Skin passive, immune to stun, free sleep debuff that used to be before, decreases the damage taken by all allies that are under 1 or more buffs by 15%. So that means that now you definitely need to run him with a shield set for that to work. But then at the same time it means you don't need to run him with a shield set, because then decreases the damage taken by all allies that are under no active buffs by 25%. So I'm not impressed with this buff. I'm still not gonna use Norog. All they've done, if you have no buffs you get 25% damage reduction, if you have buffs you get 15% damage reduction, but that means that he's not gonna be able to keep your team alive against a strong nuker, even with that 25% increase, with that 25% damage reduction. So I don't think it's a good buff on him overall. I might be wrong and he might become super OP, who knows. Astrolith attacks one enemy, places 2 bomb debuffs that detonate after 1 turn. This debuff cannot be resisted, so that means you're not gonna require accuracy to land the bombs. She's still gonna stay in my vault, let me tell you that for the moment. Smash Lord, Relying Bellow, removes all debuffs from all allies, then places a block debuff buff on all allies for 2 turns, heals all allies by 15% of this champion's HP, heals each ally by an extra 10% of this champion's max HP for each debuff removed from them. So now he cleanses and he places block debuffs. I think he was already doing that, so I think they're just correcting the writing on it, but he was already doing it in that order. He was not freezing my team against Tormins and other champions like that. Blood Offering removes all debuffs from all allies, then places a block debuff on all allies for 2 turns. Okay, so why does he have that? Written twice. Okay, so that's written twice the same way. Valinor is very confusing. Not sure what's happening. So, attacks one enemy, then places a perfect veil buff on this champion for 2 turns. Applies to Ascended skill 2. Overkill attacks one enemy. Will attack the enemy with the lowest HP with any surplus damage if this attack kills an enemy. Okay, so we get surplus damage from that skill. Where is his weaken and defense down? Is that gonna be changed? I'm confused. Where is that actual skill? Tactical Partner activates this champion's Sword Leader skill. Also activates Xavia's Poison Rain skill when Xavia is on the same team. So this Sword Leader skill, I think, is that weaken and defense down? Is that what he had on that name skill? I can't remember. I have him. He's on my vault, but yeah. Abyss, she got a buff on the defense down, so fully booked now she will have a 100% chance of landing defense down. That's great. Divine Wrath attacks all enemies, places a sleep debuff on this champion for 1 turn. If he's not ascended, damage inflicted is proportional to either this champion's attack or the target's defense or attack stat, whichever is highest. Deals an extra 30% crit damage if the target's attack is highest. Ignores 30% of the target's defense if the target's defense is highest. So, does that mean that I can be nasty and build her with super low attack and super low defense to make sure I'm getting both of those buffs at the same time? Or I'm only gonna be getting one of them? Not sure about that. But definitely I'll be choosing ignore defense rather than 30% increased crit damage. Gurptuk removes all debuffs except poisons debuff from an ally, so that means we're still gonna be left with the poisons to deal damage. Nothing else changed there. And then instead of placing 3 5% poisons, he places 3 2.5, so we actually don't kill ourselves so fast. We're gonna kill ourselves, but in a slower manner. Dracomorph, surplus damage cannot be critical. That's from his A1, that's the only thing that got changed, so that means I'm not gonna be able to one-shot the golem anymore. I'm not gonna be able to use him probably in my Fire Knight team anymore because he's not gonna be killing 2 enemies at the same time. Dragstar, apparently it's supposed to be a crazy good buff, but I can't see it as a good buff. He's kind of dependable on another HP burn champion in the team. Attacks all enemies, has a 50% chance of placing a provoke debuff for 1 turn. This chance increases to 100% if the target is under a HP burn buff. Also places a 50% decrease attack debuff for 2 turns if the provoke debuff is placed. So that means either you wait to use this skill for him to get attacked and his passive to come in play, either you pair him with another HP burn champion, and like that he's gonna place that 100% provoke all the time. Now his passive has a 55% chance of placing a HP burn debuff for 2 turns on the attacker when hit. This champion's resistance increases by 10 for every enemy under a HP burn debuff. Stacks up to 50. So yeah, I do think this is a great buff. He will be amazing for the spider to tank it now. If you're landing HP burn on all the spiderlings, how many there are? 12, you will be getting 120 resistance extra on top of what you have already, which is amazing. Like that, the spiderlings, they won't be poisoning him, so he can actually stay alive and tank for your team much better. But yeah, guys, that's everything that we have. I don't think we're gonna have other champions when the actual patch comes out. We might do a couple more that they missed to drop in here, but so far, that's what we have. Candraphone gets a nice buff. He's the only one that's super noticeable in a buff manner to say yes, I love it. He got a nice rework. I'm gonna be using the champion. I'll definitely 6-star the champion. I think he got a nice rework. The rest of the champions, I'm not very impressed. Rotos is down to the ground. He won't be blocking the revive anymore, so time to bring other champions in your teams now. I think in a way is good, but I don't think they should have nerfed him so bad. Hope you guys kind of agree with me for whoever invested in Rotos. But yeah, it will change a bit the current meta, so you won't be seeing Rotoses everywhere in every single arena team now. So hopefully it will make it easier for you guys to rank up in Gold 4 and wherever you need to do your missions for Arbiter. Duchess, no more clan boss, no more white whale. Unfortunately, You gotta take her to like 300 plus speed to make her go on a 5-to-3 ratio. For that to work, it's gonna be super hard to actually sort out all your team like that. Siphi is an okay nerf, I think. We're about to find out how she plays out later on. These nerfs, I don't think they're made for arena, guys. These, except Rotos, of course. These nerfs are made for the Void Tower. They don't want us to burn through the content like that. They don't want the champions to be too overpowered for it. But that's everything we know so far, guys. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. What are your thoughts on the nerfs, on the buffs? You like any of them? You dislike any of them? Appreciate you guys watching. If you did enjoy the video, don't forget to thumbs up, subscribe for more content, turn on notifications to see when we upload next, and I'll see you all soon on another video. Till then, peace out.